Hi there, everyone. Welcome again with another class, another with virtual tasting with Franklin's Wine Shop and Bar. I'm Antonio Palmarini, the head sommelier wine buyer of the shop and bar, and today we are going to see what is the new part of the new world in wine. So basically, we may all know the new world, like Australian wine, California wine, Argentinian wine, which is considered new world, but also there is some other countries that are much less known, that they start much later than those, and we are going to showcase them today. So let's get started with the presentation which I prepared. So let me just find it. Here we go. There we go. So the rising stars of the new world. 2020. So we are starting with this map. To understand wine, we have to understand the climate first to better understand why certain wine grows in a certain place and not everywhere. So the Vitis vinifera, the grapevine, which is used to produce wines originated in Mesopotamia, which is here of where I'm pointing with the arrow. Can you see from home my arrow when it moves? Can you see it? Thumbs up? Okay, okay, perfect. Originated here, and then thanks for some Phoenicians basically moved the vine and planted into Greece and south of Italy. Then the Roman Empire basically expanded all around Europe, and the English and French later, with the Dutch as well, basically planted wines all around the world. But of course, there are places that grapevine grows well and you can produce high quality wine, but some parts not. So let's go to understand, to see where it grows. The latitude 3050, or for me is even 2850 degrees north and degrees south, is the best area of producing these Vitis vinifera. Of course, there is some exception. For example, here where I'm pointing now, which is the north part of Chile, or the southern part of Brazil, which are out of those degrees latitude, but because of other influence, like here, the Atlantic Ocean, and in the north of Chile, still the Pacific, and the winds from Antarctic makes cooler and more and make it possible the viticulture. Excuse me. So now today we are going to analyze as a first England, which is where we are based, and I believe has got very great future. But not too far future, because actually already now they're producing fantastic wine, and England is outside these 30 to 50. So there is some factors here, which is the global warming, the first, that is actually make it possible the viticulture. So here is England on your left of the screen. You can see all the regions where the wine comes from. So it's split like in four parts. So there is the southwest, which include Cornwall, Devon, and Dorset, Somerset. They are quite cool. Again, very wet, very similar to Nantes in France, where Muscadet, for example, grows. So very cool, very wet, also very windy from the from the Atlantic Ocean. And then there is the south part, which is Hampshire. Here the soil already start to change, has got more chalky soil. And then the southeast, which includes all the Sussex, west and east, and Kent, which also here you find chalky soil, which is perfect for the grape variety from Champagne, which we are talking about also this one today. And then there is Anglia, East Anglia, which is this area on top, even northern than 52 degrees. So here is very, very cold, but interesting enough, this is one of the driest places in UK. To understand that, we have to go to the slide back. So I love this map, because this map, there is written everything. There is written the average temperature, see, which fluctuates here, 10 degrees, 20 degrees. But also say the winds, how they actually goes around. And here in the Pacific, in the Northern Hemisphere, does a circle clockwise, and this wind takes the warmth in the Mexico Gulf and push it through to England. Obviously, it doesn't arrive here that is quite hot like Mexico, but when it arrives here, being warmer than the normal climate here, condensate going inland and then precipitate. Once it precipitates, arrive to the end of England, the end of southeast England, which is already quite unloaded, and makes Kent and also East Anglia the driest place in England. So here in Kent, there are fantastic winery, for example, Chapel Down or Gooseborn, that makes amazing stuff. But I quite like Hampshire, which is kind of in the middle of the super wet of the southwest, but also the driest, which is still wet in southeast of England. Here I brought some notes. The history of drinking wine in England goes back to the Roman Empire. The production, I said started, in brackets, because someone claimed that the production was starting with Roman Empire, but honestly, I think at the time was, I mean, there is no proof, basically. There is no actually proof to say that actually they were producing wine. So I said restarted in 1952 in Hampshire, because Hambledon, I don't know if you ever heard, Hambledon was the first winery, commercial winery, to restart the production here in England. So it's very, very young, the history of, very short history of England, the new history of England. So here there is a large variety of hybrids. I brought here a few of them. There are many more, like the Seyval Blanc, Phoenix, Vidal Blanc, Ortega, Dornfelder. Did you have any of those, Alison? No, yeah, they are basically in the end of the 1800s. The human being discovered how to make hybrid between plants. So Weinjik, basically, they started to make hybrid between Vitis vinifera and other kind of Vitis, like Rupestria, that is not a Vitis which make grape wine, but make table grape. So they started to blend those in laboratory to create a super grape. They never achieved. Now we are 120 years later, and we don't know any hybrid that is super good. Except there is some little exception. For example, the Vidal Blanc, this is probably the most famous Vidal Blanc, because this one is, most of them has been created in Germany, especially during the First and Second World War. And because they wanted to create a variety that was even more resistant than Riesling in cool weather. So that's why you find most of them also in Germany. And England in 1950s, because there was not the global warming of today, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. So they started to plant this grape variety. And Vidal Blanc now is very famous in China, but also Canada, to make the ice wine. So it's very resistant to frost, so it doesn't die, also in a very, very low temperature, and makes fantastic ice wine with that. You can make high volume of Vidal Blanc made in as an ice wine. Dornfelder, for your information, is red, is the only red of the list. At the moment, there is no legislation in place that guarantee provenance, viticulture, and winemaking process. Basically, here, the most of the production is sparkling wine in champenoise methods. Basically, there is no legislation, but everybody follows the champagne laws, basically, of production. So minimum 15 months spending on lease for the non-vintage. For the vintage, you have to wait 36 months before releasing. Here, as I said, because there is no law, you can release also before these months of aging, but they actually follow very well these laws. That's why also they make great stuff that you have to a bit look for them because they're not very easy to find probably, but they are very good. So very promising future. Here you can see, I mean, I didn't cut this picture, but it's actually just a little corner. Here is Kent, and around here there is London. London is here, see, London. And here is Hampshire. And you can see the whiter lines here, that is the chalky soil. So chalky and limestone. So it's exactly the same soil that you find in Champagne. Dover is around here. And the picture below is actually the coast of Dover, where the South Down, which is called this piece of, let's say this strip of limestone soil is where meet the sea. And there is also the North Down, which goes here around. And here there is a bit more clay. So lucky enough, in Kent, that is more dry, has got more clay. So the clay absorb and retain a bit more water. I mean, I repeat, it's still a wet area, but much drier than Hampshire, which is here, which has got very drainage limestone. If we go on top right, where the wine of today coming from, because the wine of today comes from the northeast area of England, come from Norfolk, which is in East Anglia, is the north side. There is more clay, but still in the subsoil there is some limestone. So that the tiny limestone can help also to retain even more acidity, and the clay give a bit more body. The climate, as I brought, cool, wet, continental, very much influence. So it is again wet, and the driest climate in England comes from Norfolk and a bit less in Kent. The grapes that grows all around England, as I mentioned, are many hybrids, but then when the high quality production starts to take place, they start to understand that they couldn't make it with these hybrids, so they start to basically pull them out from the land and replanting with the Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, that are the Champenoise grape variety. But there are other two, which I didn't mention before, which is the Bacchus and Rondo, which still are alive today. And today we are going to taste a Bacchus. Bacchus is again an hybrid, like the Rondo, that is red. And let's go to taste it. The light went down, so it's fine. So we are back, me and you, Alison. What do you think? I mean, I want to ask you one question. If you have to think about a grape variety, what would you say when you smell the Bacchus?
Good question.
I try to help you. You feel there
it's
probably.
Sort of, it's dryish. It's sort of.
You try to.
It's very light. There's sort of maybe a bit of gooseberry or something.
Gooseberry, exactly gooseberry, grassy, green flavor, kind of.
Yeah, it's that sort of very light green. It's not grassy though. It's sort of like, it's fruitier than grass. It's sort of like a sour pear. Can I say a sour pear or sour apple?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think Sauvignon Blanc has got something in common?
Yeah, yeah. I was
It
sort of
is,
thinking
isn't it?
It was like a very dry Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
You know, like less, you know, because it's like, it's not intense.
Yeah, because, okay, come from a latitude 53 degrees north, so it's very, very high in very, very far north.
Yeah.
So that's why it's quite light, but in the palate it's got quite good body, probably because of the lees aging.
Okay.
They let it the lees stay with the wine for around 12 months before being filtered and transferred into bottle. This little maturation gives to the wine a bit more creaminess, but also a bit more body. Yes, this is the Bacchus. Is actually, I think, is a very good example of Bacchus. Is a Bacchus. It's nothing. It's not a Chassagne Rachet that you say wow, but I think needs more attention than what it has. There are a few producers that produce very good ones. Again, I mentioned before, Triple Down makes a good one. But we have the Flint, which is much smaller than Triple Down and the rest of them. So it's very, very small. And I think it's very good for the place that it grows.
Yeah. I think that it's almost like almost a little sort of fizzy, sherbety.
Sherbety, yeah, lemon kind of, yeah.
It's sort of not too much, but it's just got that little sort of like frizzy in your mouth, but which is nice. And you say sort of with fish and chips and stuff, so it would cut through a lot of fat.
Yes, definitely. That's why fish and chips, I think, is perfect.
Yeah.
That adds also the kind of herbal kind of. So yeah.
And it's almost, there's the citrusy, lemony sort of gooseberry stuff that goes on with it. Yeah. So yeah, I will. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a wine that you say wow. It's not a Chassagne Rachet, as I said, but you know, it's good. I think it's good. I think it's great. So yeah. Let's go on now. Let's go to India. Actually, can we swap? Can we go to Uruguay? Because in terms of heaviness of the wine is probably better if we start with Uruguay. I took here a picture for you that shows Uruguay, but also Brazil, because these two nations are actually expanding quite quickly in terms of production. Brazil, I don't have any Brazilian wine. I love one producer, but they don't import anymore here in England. I mean, they don't export anymore here in England. So I didn't want anyone else. But they have Uruguayan wine. So let's go to see back where, in which latitude it is. So taking consideration Buenos Aires is here, Argentina. So there is this kind of cut here inside. Okay, so let's go back to this one. See, that cut is here. The cut is here, so it's right above this cut. This is Uruguay. This is Uruguay, and is in the middle between 30 to 50. So it's around 40, 45 latitude. 445 is Bordeaux. Bordeaux also have some maritime climate, definitely, because it's right to the sea, but also influenced by the ocean. And the same thing is this area. Beautiful then, but it's got some more influence because here from the north, if there is some winds from the north, brings all the humidity from the tropical, it's very close to the tropical country of Brazil. But if some winds come from southwest, here is a very dry area in Argentina. It's called Pampero, the wind. And that Pampero wind is very dry and warm. If the wind comes from the Atlantic Ocean, it refreshes very much because it's quite cold. So yes, it's got similar to Bordeaux, but with these two extra influence, the humidity from north and the dryness from the central, from the southwest, from the central of South America. Here the soil has got a bit more clay with high amount of chalk. The chalk is similar to the limestone, basically is a younger limestone, but it's still very well drainage, give well drainage. So helps if sometimes it's too wet to release the water from the soil and makes the vines struggle. Here, Uruguay, the most common grape variety, the most planted is Tannat. Tannat is a grape variety which is on the top two of the most tannic grape in the world. It's a red grape variety which originated in Bordeaux, and then during the phylloxera has been basically wiped out in Europe, and in South America, in Uruguay, found the new home, like happened with Carmaner in Chile, like it happened with Malbec in Argentina. Same thing, Tannat in Uruguay, basically the same thing. But the high quality production here started much later than Argentina and Chile. And the producer that we are tasting now, which is one of the most acclaimed winery, has got just 9 years old. 2011 has been established and already produced very, very good wines. So here we have an example of Albarino, which is a grape variety which likes these cool winds from the ocean. Grows in Spain, in Galicia, originated there, but gives an example also in Uruguay. There is many appellation already. The wine that we are tasting now comes from Maldonado, which is the eastern and more exposed to the Atlantic appellation, and also is the coolest thanks to the external position. And this Albarino, if you have to compare in terms of nose to the Albarino from Galicia, is probably riper in flavor. It's got that nice peach, a bit of pineapple on the palate, but still retain very great acidity. very refreshing, light. Also, this one is a bit in the lees that gives a bit of that creaminess. In Brazil, today we don't have anything. There is the number 4 here, which is Serra Gaucha. Serra Gaucha is where my favorite producer operates, which is called Miolo. Miolo has 100 years of winemaking history, and Miolo produce more Cabernet, Merlot, more Bordeaux style, and also Chardonnay, an international grape. There is another one which is also very interesting, another area, which is Campagna Gaucha, which is here, very in the border with Uruguay. Here, when I've been told the first time, I was a bit like shocked. This place is very high in altitude, and it's very common to see the snow during the winter in Brazil. I'm still shocked, actually. I still can't believe it, but actually, yeah, it's true. I've, you know. So there is 4 seasons, so it's not tropical weather. And having 4 seasons, so like Mediterranean, you can produce grape. So when you go to, let's go to the first image again. When you go around this area, so around 25 degrees north and 25 degrees south, you have tropical weather. The tropical weather, as you know, it doesn't have any winter. It's got rainy season, which is their winter, but it's relatively, it is always warm, basically always hot, and also always humid all year long. And basically the grape vine needs to rest during the winter, go to the dormant period, recharge a little bit for the year later. But here in the tropical weather, they cannot do that because there is no winter. So basically the vine doesn't go to sleep, but carry on producing wine. So basically you harvest, you prune a bit, and then it starts to produce flowers and then grapes. So it does 2 harvests a year. Quite crazy. Here the vines in tropical weather resist 10, 12 years, then they die, basically. But in Mediterranean weather, if you take care very much of the vine, can last also more than 100. So, you know, the life is much less stressful for them in Mediterranean weather, I would say. Okay, so from Uruguay, now we go to India. So India, there is tropical weather. So where is India? India is here, where we are around 25 degrees north. So you will say, Antonio, you are telling me that here they don't produce wine, and then you give me a wine that comes from here. Wait a second. So the wine that we are going to taste comes from Maharashtra, which is this area here, which is high in altitude. And the high altitude here gives a sort of 4 seasons. So even if is right in the tropical weather, but with high altitude, you have the kind of winter. You have the winter that the vines goes to dormant period. So a company that produce wine also in Italy, France, South Africa, wanted to invest here. And also here, 10 years ago, this winery basically has been established. It's called Fratelli Wines Company, and the wine is called Ginoon. Ginoon is also a joint venture between Fratelli Wines with Boisset. Boisset is a very famous winemaker in Champagne. They do also a wine which is Champenoise method, made by a Champenoise winemaker, and won many awards. I never tasted, honestly, but apparently should be good. The top two wine, except the sparkling wine, is the Ginoon tier, which they do the Ginoon Red, made by Cabernet, and the Ginoon White. This Ginoon White that we have here today is made by two grapes, Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. Chardonnay accounted the 60% of the blend and Sauvignon Blanc 40%. So the 40% of the Sauvignon Blanc is early harvest to retain acidity. Already Sauvignon Blanc is a grape variety that has got a much more acidity than Chardonnay, is also early harvest to keep even more. The Chardonnay instead is slightly late harvest, slightly, I mean later than the Sauvignon Blanc, and then the 50% of this Chardonnay is barrel fermented and aged 1 year. The other is stainless steel. In the end, they blend all together to make this amazing Indian wine. Did you taste it already? What do you think?
Yeah, I just tasted it. You can certainly get that malolactic malolactic fermentation, the barrel. The barrel is there.
Battery, the kind of jackfruit bit, cooked banana, again pineapple.
Yes.
But with good acidity. I mean, it's well balanced. It's well made as wine. This technique of having late harvest, early harvest comes from actually from Valpolicella area, from Italy. But it's made by a French winemaker. So
you're feeling the sort of the young and the old here. Do you know what I mean? There's sort of like there's that freshness from the Sauvignon Blanc, but then you've got this creaminess from the Chardonnay. Do you know, like it's quite fresh at the back of the mouth.
Butterscotch that coming from the Chardonnay note as well.
Yeah.
So you have the complexity. I mean, for an Indian wine,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, for an Indian wine, it's quite complex, quite good. There is other two area which needs even more attention, because the other region that are here, where I'm pointing with the arrow, in the south side and in the west side, are honestly too hot, so don't take in consideration. But if you go in Kashmir and Punjab, here we are very high in altitude. Here you can go up to 1,000, 1,500, and the vineyard growing there. There are some crazy investors that invested there. It's not easy like Maharashtra, because Maharashtra, anyway, you have Mumbai not too far, which is a huge city. So basically is a sort of marketplace for you. But here, when you are in New Delhi, still to reach New Delhi from the mountain, imagine these roads from the mountain to go down in India, how dangerous and how slow you have to go down. So the area of Kashmir is probably one of the best, which gives the most fresh kind of style of wine. Again, Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay are the most planted here. India is, if we'll have a future, I mean, for me, we'll have, because it's an expanding country, is growing super fast. And so I think more and more people will invest in wine. At the moment, as I brought, drinking production wine is still a new thing for most of the society, but the society have 1 billion people. So if you try to think the future in 40, 50 years, this country will be, uh, and I don't say rich, but a lot of poor people will disappear because will go up, and the wines, like happened in China, will be more common and common on the daily basis. So I think this area of Kashmir and Punjab will boom at the time. So it's still in an early stage. This winery also is 10 years old. The other 9 from Uruguay, 10 years old, 2010. So very new. And yeah, probably have good future for white wine. For white wine, not too much red. At the moment, Sauvignon Blanc dominating the plantation of wines, of grapes. So probably will be a new Sauvignon Blanc nation. You never know. Okay, we moved to China. So we were basically here in South, India, Nepal. Now we move to China. China, there is a lot of things to say about China. China is already in the top 10 wine producing country, which when I say that, nobody believes, but it's true. Ningxia, which is the region where the wine which we are tasting today coming from, has 40 kilo hectare of vineyards, so it's already huge, and is like all New Zealand, the plantation just in this area. See here in the heart of China, in Ningxia. So it's already huge, the production here. Where does it go, this wine? It's already domestic, the market of wine in China. So they import a lot of fine wine, but also they are starting to produce a lot of entry level, but also fine wine as well. There is a wine which comes from Yunnan here in the south. Here is very mountainous, but super mountainous. I'm saying Yunnan, there is a winery which is called Aoyun, which is owned by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. So a very rich company which invested heavily in wine from all around the world. And Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy here produce a wine which grows from 2,002 to 3,000 meters from the level of the sea. Aoyun sells a bottle here in England, retail price around £300. And this Chinese. It was in Harrods wine shop, and I saw time ago in the Fortune Maison as well. So if you want to go to check Aoyun, you can go. The label is very fancy.
I'm not sure Stephen would want me spending it in my Harrods card there.
Okay, so be careful.
Oh, look.
But yeah, it was there. It comes in a fancy wooden box, all the kind of Chinese carved. Yeah, it's quite fancy. But I never tasted honestly. But I tasted many Chinese wine, also because I do I'm part of a judge panel of many competitions, so happens to judge flights of Chinese wine, depending. It's like European wine, like wine from all around the world. If you take the cheap one, very bad, probably worse than what we are used to drink. But if you get an expensive Chinese, it's starting to be very interesting. So that's why I choose for Franklin's Pretty Pony, that coming from Ningxia. that is not cheap at all. It's around £53.50, something like this, around £54 roughly. And yes, it's made by Cabernet. It's quite good, actually. It's well made. Before going to the wine, I would like to say again about Nixia. The Nixia also is high in altitude. And here, if I have to compare the climate here, I would compare it with Ribera del Duero in Spain or Mendoza in Argentina, because it's warm, continental, but even more warm. So it's extreme continental. Actually, also Ribera del Duero is classified like extreme continental, but this one is more extreme. Extreme means that the diurnal and the night temperature varies so much, so the gap is quite large, giving ripeness and giving acidity in the same time during the night time. But also having, again, also this one, 4 season, in the winter can reach minus 25 degrees. Minus 25 degrees is the temperature where the vine die, unless it's a Vidal Blanc that resists a bit more, that I mentioned before, because it's an hybrid, it's made in laboratory to resist more. But the normal vine, Vitis vinifera, minus 20 dies. And so you have to, actually, I don't have a picture, but what they do during the winter, basically they kind of dig next to the vine, they bend the vine and they bury it. They cover with a clay. So basically, during the winter, the vines have a dormant period under the ground, because doing this, you prevent the frost of the plant, and so it won't die, basically. So that's why, yeah, extreme continental and also desert-like during the summer. So why they started to produce here, don't ask me, because it's quite a difficult place to produce. They actually did it well, because some wine are very good. There are other regions of China which we have to be very careful, because will be the future as well. Shandong is one of that. Shandong have probably two good points. The first point, like Maharashtra before, which is very close to Beijing. So the marketplace is very close. Second, which is very related to the one that is with next to the sea. So the sea is a marketplace. They can ship it very well and very easily anywhere in the world. And then also the maritime climate. Let's go back to the first picture. See, is here. So here they have, also if it is lower, so should be hotter, but have what they say the most similar climate to Bordeaux, again, even if it is much warmer. You can't compare really to here, but it's quite warm. As is actually, wait a second. Where is? Yeah, is there. Is right here actually. So more or less, a bit southern than Bordeaux, but yeah, very close. All right. So yeah, the Shandong they produce all around China. They produce mainly Cabernet Sauvignon. They are very Cabernet focused. Very Cabernet focused. Probably, if I'm not wrong, because then the numbers in China are always wrong, because you read something that is written a percentage, you read another book that is written something else. You have to look at and is again different. So I would say around 70% of the planting in all country is Cabernet Sauvignon. And they also have some kind of hybrid slash cross that we are actually, I'm not really sure if it is an hybrid or a cross, which is Cabernet Garnished. Probably you never heard, Alison. The Cabernet Garnished is a hybrid slash cross between Carmenère and Cabernet, something like this. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a cross of two grape variety or made in laboratory, so hybrid with other VTs. Again, Vidal Blanc here is present because in Ningxia, during the winter, what they do, ice wine and Vidal Blanc. There is a good planting of Vidal Blanc here in Ningxia. And then the Marcelane. The Marcelane, I didn't mention before, the Marcelane grows also in South America, grows also in Brazil and Uruguay, but also in Argentina you can find some Marcelane. Marcelane is a grape variety which is very tannic, similar to a tannat, but is more resistant to the hot, basically matures slowly. So in hot weather is better probably than Cabernet Sauvignon, because Cabernet Sauvignon needs warm weather to ripe, but in even hotter weather, Marcelane matures slowly and actually give best result. But it's very tannic as a grape variety. I tasted some Marcelane from Brazil and from Argentina. They are quite gamey, earthy, with good tannins level. Have you ever tasted any Marcelane?
No. Just very quickly, is it quite a thick skin then? Because
yeah,
so very thick skin grapes. So that would make it slow ripening.
Slow ripening,
skin as well, and protects the moisture inside.
Yeah. Also, is more resistant to sunburn. And generally, not always, generally, the thick skin gives more tannins. But the tannins are actually the polyphenols that are in the skin. So basically, if I take two different grapes with the same thickness of skin, but one grape in a DNA mature more polyphenols, so the grape gonna be more tannic than the other.
Yeah, so they go sort of redder and deeper.
So not always the thick skin makes high tannin. Example, Nebbiolo.
Yes.
Nebbiolo has got high tannins, but it's low in color and doesn't have thick skin.
Yeah. Okay.
There's an example, but generally yes. Thick skin give more tannins, and thick skin also is better in warm climate, because for sunburn and stuff. Cabernet Garnish is the same, basically. Is more resistant to warm, so that's why Ningxia gives a great result. So the Ningxia wine. Is it your first Ningxia wine that you taste?
I think it is.
Oh, welcome to China then. Yes, this one on the nose is very bell pepper, a lot of vegetal. There is 10% of Merlot and 90% of Cabernet Sauvignon. Coming from is not official, but it's a sub area of Ningxia, which is called the Elan Mountain. Elan Mountain has got a bit different soil than the valley floor, because the valley floor is more clay, and on the slope is a bit gravelly and sandy. The sand gives to the wine a bit more elegance, while the clay usually gives more richness to the wine. So yeah, this one grows in a more sandy soil. So even if have 40 degrees Celsius during the summer, this wine is not super overripe jammy, but it's got good balance between the ripeness and the freshness, I think.
Yeah.
And
It's
then I've got,
yeah, there's the peppers, but there's also it's sort of like a white pepper, like there's the spicy,
yeah, a bit spicy.
like, but it's peppery, do you know, rather
Yeah,
than
yeah, peppery, black
yeah.
pepper,
And
cracked
yeah,
peppercorn,
cracked peppercorns, yeah.
Szechuan pepper. Now we are in China, so you have to say the Chinese ingredient. Szechuan pepper.
Totally right. Yeah.
Szechuan pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, bell pepper, and yeah, a bit of smoky.
It's a nice balance. It's
It's a very good Chinese wine, honestly.
yeah.
Do you think? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I love it. For beer, I mean, this is a country that will show up top wine, and this is for sure. I can bet whatever you like, because this country in 50 years gonna pick up very well.
Yeah, because this has got
And
7 years on it already. This is 7 years old already, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 2013.
2013. So you feel that
And it
it's
can
still
age
young.
even
It could
more,
have
and
some more, yeah.
I think can age even more, because the
Yeah.
dry fruits is still in the under layer, so can develop.
They're not there yet. So
Yeah,
it's still, as I said, it's still fresh.
Exactly. Can develop even other flavor, other earthy character, or even other flavor that probably we don't know, because they actually, yes, they are using Cabernet Sauvignon, but which clone of Cabernet Sauvignon they use, we don't really know. I mean, what is the Cabernet garnish? Probably they blended with Cabernet and they state that it's Cabernet. I don't believe on them, honestly. So probably they blend many grapes and they state it's Cabernet Sauvignon, because does it taste Cabernet Sauvignon 100%? It's 90% stated, but I wouldn't say it's a real Cabernet Sauvignon. It's probably there is something else. Probably there is some Cabernet.
Certainly you can feel the Merlot there.
Yeah, but
there's certainly that Merlot, that smoothness of the Merlot that comes through.
But there. Only 10%.
But I reckon there's maybe even some Shiraz in there or something, that's giving it
I don't know. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows exactly? Because even here in China, there is not actually legislation. You can state the provenance where it comes from. How do you say? Yeah, the Ningxia province. Yeah, the province where it comes from. But there is still no law that they say, okay, you are in Ningxia, okay, you have to put at least, let's say, 50% Cab, 50% Merlot, and nothing else. So there is not this law like they are in Europe. I mean, there is not a new word as well, but I trust more a new word than new word. That's the thing. So yeah, probably there is blended with something else. We don't know. We don't know which kind of yeast they use, because the yeast in wine we never talk about the yeast in wine. But when I studied sake, I found many, if I can tell, many lies about wine. Many things hidden about wine, and because in sake, what it makes the sake is the wine, the sake making, and in the sake making, the yeast play a super important role, and in the wine is the same, but in the wine is hidden, is something a taboo. Nobody talks about it. When you taste a wine that tastes like Chablis, but is made by another grape and comes from another country, I mean, you start to understand that probably the yeast is not wild yeast, obviously, but it's coming from Chablis.
But it's also like, you know, it's all these so many combinations, you know, soil,
So many
climate,
combinations, obviously.
you know, amount of water, it's everything, you know, temperature.
Yeah, the water, if it is also natural water, or if it is irrigated, how many nutrients there is into the soil, how deep is the soil, how old is the vine, if the vine has got a different rootstock or a natural rootstock, which in Europe it basically is forbidden to plant a natural rootstock for the phylloxera. So there is many things going on. Even the rootstock change the flavor, change the resistancy, and change the yield and the vigor of the vine itself, of whatever it is. So there are many factors. You said very well. But,
and the Chinese have been.
But we never talk about the yeast. The yeast in wine play also its role. Probably minimal, but probably not.
Yeah. I mean, from a science point of view, the Chinese have been putting a lot of money into it from a scientific point of view in sort of really understanding the chemistry of the wine.
I think so. They are doing, yes, they are investing heavily on this. There is someone who say that in 50 years, China will be the largest wine producing country in the world. I hope it's not going to be, because it's going to change completely the wine market, completely. Because in 50 years from now, 60 years from now, definitely there will be much more people drinking wine, like most of the Chinese, that now probably they are still not drinking. Indian, the same, but also Southeast Asia or Africa. But also will change completely the game of the wine market. So I hope they relax a little bit because they're investing a bit too much. As I said, Ningxia already but already have the same hectares of vineyards of all New Zealand.
Yeah,
quite impressive.
Crazy. But they've got such a huge population, so most of what they'll make, they'll actually keep for themselves. So
yeah, at the moment, yes. So probably they export to Mongolia, Kazakhstan, or India, Nepal. You know, but still is drunk, I think,
I know
still
that,
kind of locally. Here in England, in 2009, a winery from Ningxia province applied for the Decanter Wine Award, which is one of the most acclaimed wine competition here in London, and probably in the world. And basically, the Bordeaux blend under 10 pounds won an Ningxia wine. And from then, you know, all the newspaper already were talking about. But you know, they are still very new. Also Pretty Bonnie is not that.
Yeah. I know that a lot of viticulturists in Australia have been up in China advising them. So a lot of the Australian winemakers and the wine specialists have been helping the Chinese develop a lot of their vineyards and stuff. So
yeah, believe it.
Yeah, and it's that modern style of winemaking that the Australians have. So and
also you have to think that Louis Vuitton ONC that invested everywhere in the world. And if they went there to invest already, you know, they tell you something, because they know better than us how is going to be the world in the near future. Okay, thank you very much, Alison, for this hour.
Yeah, good selection as always.
Thank you very much, Alison. And see you in the
Okay.
shop very soon.
Ciao.
Take care. Ciao,
See you
ciao.
soon.